Welcome to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. This is the show which highlights the importance of estate planning and why everyone needs to do it. And of course, the unfortunate consequences of what happens far too often if people have not planned. I'm your host, John Braddock, author of Click Here When I Die, and the founder of My Life and Wishes, The Legacy Vault, an online planning and document storage solution created to make things easier for those you love. Folks, we've got a great one lined up for you today. I'm excited to have as my guest and to introduce you to the Kings, Dusty and Jennifer King. And let me share a little bit about this amazing couple with you. Dusty and Jennifer King founded King & King in Tennessee back in 2005. They both spent many years litigating contentious family law cases and other civil cases. And after having traveled to the beach in the Gulf Coast region for many years, they decided to make the move to Alabama in 2021. And in conjunction with this move, the Kings decided to put down their swords and change their focus to their practice to estate planning and business law. Their office is in Foley, but they serve clients across Baldwin and Mobile counties in Alabama, and they still maintain their office in Tennessee. The Kings are very active in their community. Dusty is a diplomat with the South Baldwin Chamber of Commerce and serves on the EPIC Program Committee, which is a student entrepreneurship program. And Jennifer is a member and on the committee for Impact 100, which awards 5 nonprofits in Baldwin County with funds for those that are selected to use for their causes. And they're very well recognized for their work. They're honored to have won the categories of Best Law Firm in 2024 and Best Civil Attorney for 2023 and 2024 for the Best of Baldwin Awards. And when they're not lawyering or traveling back and forth to Tennessee and Alabama, they enjoy kayaking and spending time with their 4-legged members of their family. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. So, gonna ask, because you have the front. Are one of you in one state today, or are you in the same state, just different offices?
We're in the same state today. That's obviously not always the case. I think we got a couple of months here where we're going to be in 2 different places coming up for some extended period of time. But today we're in the same spot.
Ah, that's nice. And it's a good way to kind of roll into the upcoming weekend, right?
Yeah, we actually get to go home and see each other tonight. So that's always a good feeling.
Absolutely. Well, I can imagine, having a law practice and your specialty areas and having 2 offices that many times, you're going different directions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started with a few things. As our audience knows, I love to talk about passion, the why behind people do what they do. What gets us up in the morning and puts a smile on our face. In your bio, you talked about transitioning the firm from litigating family law to cases that focus on estate planning and business law. And I can guess why, because one line of business, family law, is all fighting going on, right? And estate planning deals with trying to prevent fights in the future. But can you guys share with us what prompted the shift in the legal practice?
You want me to start, Dusty?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
So at the time, we made the geographic shift. At that time, I think we were also in the midst of a change in some of the judiciary going in as far as Tennessee. So there was a very respected and renowned judge who made his retirement occurred around the same time that we decided we were going to make the geographic move. So at that point, there wasn't much of a better time than to also make a change as far as practice area too. It kind of we were going to have to make a change of who we appeared in front of as far as the judicial and the bench, and we just decided also let's make that change. And as far as the estate planning, it's something I intended to do right out of law school. And you know what, sometimes the best of intentions don't work out. I say a tornado possibly interrupted my plan, and that was true, because when I made the shift from Dusty and I met at an insurance defense firm. I was about a year out in practice, and I transitioned to a solo practitioner who did a lot of real estate work. And at that point in time, due to her displacement over damage from a tornado, I had a family law practitioner come in. So the rest is history. She started sending me overflow. I built up reputation, and, you know, really came really full force in the family law. And, you know, you blink and then you have 20 years in that line of practice. So my intention was not to do family law. My intention, I'd taken estate and gift tax and all the planning, all those courses, and that was my intention. It just, life kind of superseded. So at some point I decided, and, let's do what you want to do in life and focus. And I had fought, and like he has, I don't know how many trials I've had, but it's tons. And I was ready to make that shift. So when we made the geographic shift, we also made Dusty's also has done business law throughout his career, but we made more of a true emphasis on this line of practice as far as our law practice.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that. I mean, I think too often attorneys come out of law school, and when we're in law school, we've got this idea of what we want to do when we start practicing. We have the areas, we have the classes that we really enjoy, things of that nature. And the reality is we can get out and practice, and we become more reactive than intentional about things. So you wind up taking, for us, we went to an insurance defense firm. So I started off doing insurance, car wreck defense, workers' comp defense, that kind of thing. I switched over to a firm that did primarily plaintiffs work for a couple of years. So I was doing that. And Jennifer and I were dating at that time, and like she said, she was working with a solo practitioner. I actually went in with her and the solo practitioner for a very short period of time before we started our own firm. So for me, my practice has kind of been up to the point we made this transition, what I'm going to call more of a reactionary thing. I was taking what was coming in the door. You kind of get to where you're focusing on certain things. That way you build up your reputation, in certain areas. For some reason, I got into a lot of real estate related litigation for whatever reason, still have a couple of those cases. And then when we came down here, and like Jennifer mentioned, we were going to be in front of new judges anyway. So we thought, well, if we're going to be in front of new judges and we're going to have to learn the new judges' tendencies, we might as well do it at the beach. So we came down to Foley, which is right by Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, and set up shop. And when we got here, we were like, we're kind of, family law has, I think the last stat I heard was like what the average family law practitioner makes about 5 years before they decide we want to go do something else because of the burnout. We managed to do it about 20 years. And we just made the decision of we were gonna approach this transition from a place of intention, and we were going to do it the way we wanted to do it, and we were going to do the kind of law that we wanted to do. And so I've always enjoyed the business law side of stuff. I get a kick out of working with a small business owner or an entrepreneur to build something. That was, I think, a common complaint I had about family law is you're not building anything. You're in fact destroying it, or at least that's the way it felt to me. And with this, I think it's just the opposite. I think both with the business law and and the estate planning side of things, you're building something. You're making the goal is to make life easier for people, not harder. So that's kind of the summary of the transition for me.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. Audience probably gets tired of hearing it, but the estate planning world, I mean, it is proactive versus the other areas of law that are very reactive. And I know a lot of estate planning attorneys. I know a lot of family law attorneys. have had the experience of being in family law court way back when, and that was not fun, and it was a lot of fighting going on, and so I can only imagine how tedious and tiresome that can become to attorneys on a daily basis, with everyone airing out all that dirty laundry. So,
Well, a friend of mine, I think, said it best when he said, family law is unique from the other areas of practice in that it is about 85% client management and 15% actual the law, where most of the other areas of law, and I would say estate planning is well within this, that's flipped on its head, and it's about 85% you're really getting into the law and the nuances and working with those kind of things. And it's, a very limited amount of client control or client management that you have to do with this area of the law. So I think it resembles more what we think we're going to get into in law school than family law does.
yeah, well said. Well said. Okay, well, hey, another question just to piggyback on that. So how do you believe that the experience, dealing with contentious family law cases, has actually helped you with your approach to estate planning?
I think it's helped. That was what I was just gonna say is I don't regret, one, I don't regret any part, and I don't regret doing that for even that period, for 20 years, because it's made me a better planner. We've seen in my family law practice as well as Dusty's, I had to go through several business valuations. So I had to work with the accountant. I saw all that hand in hand. So, and now we represent several people who are business owners who need estate planning. Maybe they have a transition person that they need to put into that business to see that business through at their death. So I have, you have that planning, and then you also you can anticipate some of the family dynamics that are going to occur. You just can, because you've seen it play out in a family law setting. So we're trying to plan to avoid a fight and avoid some kind of catastrophe occurring. So we've seen kind of the end of it when it could be at that point, and we're just trying to avoid it. I think it makes us better planners. It also, I will say this about litigation, coming from a litigation background, in my mind, which a lot of transactional attorneys don't, and that's fine, but I think it's making us better as far as what we're doing now practice wise, because we have seen it at the worst. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you can kind of plan a little bit. I don't want to say that we're better than anyone in that, but I think, coming from a litigation background, you tend to maybe foresee some pitfalls that a transactional attorney may not see. The other thing that I think is, I don't want to say unique to me and Jennifer, but certainly an element that we have is we were both mediators in Tennessee. So we also mediated a lot of family law cases. I think that skill set, along with the litigation, gives us the advantage to have the hard conversations with people. For example, if you have a blended family situation and you're doing their estate plan, there's going to be some questions and there's going to be some hard conversations that those two people may need to have. Jennifer and I are not afraid to tread in those waters, to have those conversations and see what kind of response we get, and get those two people talking about those issues so we can better plan for them. So I think that's also been very helpful from that perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Wow, that's awesome. So I call the show Estate Planning Nightmares, right? And people often ask me, why do you call it that? And well, because hearing stories, especially those that are not so pretty, right, I think helps people think about, their own situation. And I also think it helps people to understand the realities of, what may happen without, proper planning. And I know the two of you have seen a lot of the good and the bad and the ugly through your careers with family law and now in estate planning. And so if you've got a story that you could share with the audience, that'd be great. I know you had told me kind of a nightmare a while back, Jennifer. I don't know if you wish to share that or not.
Sure, I'll share it. So I had a client that came to me, and she and a relative were appointed as co-personal representatives under their grandfather's will. So both of these individuals had been represented by one prior attorney who had since gotten out of the case. So that was kind of a flag number one, that there were problems. So he had withdrawn from the case. So I represented her, one of the individuals, and there was another attorney who represented her uncle. So from the inception of the case, it was pretty apparent that these two people did not like each other. Dare I will say they hated each other.
Let me just pause for a second. So this is co-personal representative. Usually, if I'm not mistaken, usually you appoint personal representative or have one, and then you have a secondary if the first can't serve or not willing to serve, right?
True. He had made them both co-personal representatives. So simultaneously they were serving under the terms of his will. So
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. So
No.
we're starting off, at that point in time I think day one of my representation had already started off with a bang, where the other personal representative had drawn a sizable amount of money out of the decedent's bank account. So we had to explore that from day one, because my client was already, didn't like the other person anyway, and now thought he was stealing from the estate. Lesson learned in the matter that, clients and all of us need to know how our bank accounts are set up and how they're structured, because there are various statutes, and Alabama has one of them, as far as how that the funds in the account will go depending on how it's titled, the account is titled. So that was kind of the first issue that we had. We also, in the middle of this estate, had investment property. One of the individuals wanted to sell, the other one didn't want to sell. So the file becomes thicker with the court, as more litigation, more time, obviously more legal fees continue to go forward. Finally, we kind of got everything somewhat calmed down to where we've gotten property sold, really with me and the other attorney trying to work together to resolve it instead of fight every battle. Because if we had fought every battle, there'd be, no money in the estate. And so we're trying to maintain, because there are other beneficiaries that are not just the individuals who are the personal representatives. So I will tell one more story about this, but so ultimately though, this is a case of, yes, you want your planning documents, but it's also important of who you appoint. And what we learned very quickly is the court decided to approve what the decedent put in his will, which was to have two people serve. But the reality of it is the banks don't want two people serving. They're not going to have two people signing checks. They basically told both individuals, we're not doing that. We're not set up. That's not how the banking world is, processing payments. And so, it's a matter of who, making sure these two, if you're going to, one, do you want two people? Is that a good idea? We go through that with people. Many times, no. And if you're appointing somebody in this scenario, do these two people, how's the dynamic going to work? In this same case, lesson learned for things to start putting out there, even on our end, is this same client of mine received an email that she believed to be from our law firm, but was not. And she wired estate funds to where she thought was going to our law firm, but was actually obviously a scam. So I had to jump and track down immediately when I found this out. I contacted and got the bank involved, and we had to undo the wire, and the money was recovered, thankfully. But we now, or I try to tell clients as well when we're involved, is we will never ask you to wire money to us. Ever. And she just had received it via email, and assumed at that point, well, it must be from me, even though a lot of the information was wrong, and there were things that were fishy and didn't look right in the email. So we recovered the funds, heart attack averted. And
Wow.
thankfully we're at a calmer part of this estate.
Yeah, so so that scam is interesting. So and correct me when I misstep, but if an individual has a will, which is a great first step, instead of letting the courts decide where everything goes, but it's still a public document and it's still going to be probated. Is that how? I mean, are there people just like fishing out there, right? And looking into public records and seeing this kind of stuff? And is that where the like scams come through?
Not on this case. We're in a world, as we all know, with, cybersecurity threats, and we believe that, the individual's email, I mean, even though she had security in play, I mean, that's at least believed that the client's email is where that kind of came to play. And so there was a scam on that. And what she did truly believe was from us was obviously never from us. And money was wired to an out-of-state bank. So, I mean, it was very, but that's another case in point of what I try to make a point of, I'm never going to ask you to wire money to me ever. That's not going to occur. And so, thankfully, because it was the full estate account that was wired. And so, yeah. And then you already had two people who were in contentious. They were, contentious with one another already, which compounded the issue.
Yeah, that
The
just rubs
ironic
a
thing
little
about
bit of salt in the wound, right?
Yeah, the ironic thing about that case, though, I think, is because they were so contentious with one another, I think they were both looking over each other's shoulders, which was probably why this came to our attention so fast and Jennifer was able to stop it. That's the irony of it. But yeah, I think it was a phishing scam on their end. But to your point, you hear now in the real estate world, people, filing, and recording bogus deeds and things of that nature. It's absolutely possible that they could be looking for those publications, and I'm one to say that, if the crooks would spend as much time on legitimate work as they do being crooks, we'd probably be in a different place in this world. But yeah, I think that's entirely possible, to your point.
Yeah. Wow. That's some. So how, obviously, having two, co-personal representatives is not a good idea. Because family, my experience, Michelle and I have 6 children. So, family doesn't agree ever on anything, let alone when it comes down to a very stressful and difficult time that involves money and assets and things of that nature. I mean, they're just never going to agree. So, note to everybody out there, it's important to get your planning done. Just have one personal representative, trustee, and then what your secondary is that the right term for it? Secondary?
Yeah,
Trustee?
alternate, yeah, secondary.
Yeah. Wow. How long did that under that circumstance versus if it's one person, right? Or if you have 2 people, God forbid, that they can actually agree on stuff. How long would it have taken versus how long did it actually take to get finally wrapped up?
Well, it's months and months, with two people involved. I mean, it's gonna, it had already been going on by the time I was involved, it had already been going on for probably 5 months. So, it's still typically anything that's gonna go through a court, like a will-based plan, is gonna be typically a longer administration than a trust administration. Even if the trust may have inside of that may have a trust that's going to keep going by intention, but the administration part of it's just going to take longer. So, this is definitely compounded and added to their legal fees. It added to their headache, hurt the family dynamic. I mean, it just, wasn't a good idea all the way around. And they did not really, the two family members, and they didn't like each other. But I don't think also they were even really knew each other that well, we didn't spend a lot of time. So I think we try to spend quite a bit of our time, whether we're dealing with a trust, which was not what I described, and what's the role? What are these individuals that we're putting in these roles? What are they good at? If I have someone that maybe their own finances are not necessarily in order, they may be a great person, but their finances are in order. Well, maybe we don't need them as trustee or personal representative.
Yeah, so important. I mean, that's why, and on several of our shows, I've had our guest attorneys on talking about the perils of do-it-yourself planning, and that's why I think it's just so important that people consult professionals, estate planning attorneys, because you guys know the questions to ask people that they're not thinking about, and it can be night and day, when the last day comes, right?
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, I got a few more questions for you guys if you still have a little bit of time for us. So, and I've had several businesses in my lifetime with different locations and things, but are there any unique challenges or conversely opportunities that you encounter serving clients both across Alabama and Tennessee?
Well, I think scheduling it can always be a challenge because we've got about a 7.5, 8 hour drive between the two offices. So scheduling can be a challenge, which is another reason why it's worked out for us that we've stepped away from the family law, because usually you've got a few dumpster fires you have to put out with family law, and there's more urgency in getting things scheduled. But scheduling can be a challenge, but there's also, we're so fortunate to be in the time that we are with the technology that we have, because we've been able to do so much through Zoom, like we're here now, and through Microsoft Teams and things of that nature. Alabama fortunately has electronic case filing, which Tennessee does not yet have in the majority of their counties. I think Davidson County, where Nashville is, does have it, but the other counties don't. So yeah, there's a few challenges. My suggestion, if anybody is thinking about doing this, is just we kind of had the infrastructure set up almost by accident, in that quite frankly, I just got tired of spending $5,000 a pop on new servers every 4 or 5 years. So we went more to a cloud-based model. Our practice management software was cloud-based and is cloud-based. And we have voice over internet protocol phones, so basically internet-based phones. So when we decided to make this move, it was fairly easy to do, because literally we just needed an internet connection. Now, of course, we got an office space, and so once we got a couple of desks and an office space, had the internet hooked up, we had our laptops and we were rolling. So we were fortunate in that we had that set up to begin with, and I just want to be able to work from home on occasion when we were still in Tennessee, but it worked out in our favor in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah, nice. So, hey, congratulations to you guys. Winning awards like, best law firm and best civil attorney. I mean, obviously it's a great honor. Can you speak to what those accolades mean to you, and how do you strive to maintain those high standards that earned you those recognitions?
Well, I mean, I think that's something we've tried to, this ends up being your baby as a business owner. I didn't set out to have a business. I don't think I thought that. I think Dusty might have, I'm gonna say. But I didn't set out necessarily right out of law school to think, okay, I'm gonna be a business owner. But I mean, it's the law practice and the business kind of becomes, it's all in one. And we've had I think they've been fortunate enough to be able to work together, much sometimes to people's surprise, because they always hear it as, well, husband and wife, how do you work? We always get that question, how do you work together? But we would have been good business partners if we hadn't been married. And that's the truth. We kind of had the similar background as far as thinking. But we really kind of delve into this community. We love this community in Baldwin County, in Lower Alabama is really honestly so business focused. It really is. And I don't mean that they're not just focused on somebody or a company that's 300 or a large company, that they're focused on, everybody from the solo person that's out doing lawn work. We've represented those people, and kudos to them, to somebody that's a real estate investor, to you name it. So we kind of embraced the community from jump when we got here. We really wanted involved in the chambers. It was a fabulous way, not just from a networking. Of course, there's that component, but also just we wanted to meet everybody. We wanted to know the community. Some of our friends, that's how we developed those relationships. And I think it's a community that wants to see you and know you as far as who you are firsthand. So we kind of just really embrace that. There's a lot of after hours, that chamber events, and they're not the stuffy chamber events where everybody just comes around and stands against the wall. I mean, we have them they might be at the tiki bar, they may be at a restaurant, but again, these are fellow business owners doing the same thing we are. I mean, I think, so that part has been, we appreciate, it's an honor that we were able to receive the awards, because there's so many other law firms, obviously, in this county, doing something similar.
Right. Yeah, I think, a lot of it has to, obviously with all your community involvement, networking, being out there, and just helping generally, around those causes. And, I love, the fact you work together, married couple, that kind of thing. As you guys know, Michelle and I work together. We have for 20 some years now. And we get the same question all the time. How do you do that, right? But I mean, I know my lane and I stay in my lane, and I have my unique abilities and she has hers, and they complement each other, really well. And again, people say, well, you're spending 24/7 together. And it's like, yeah, because she's my best friend and my business partner, which leads into so how do you guys integrate like your personal time, your passion for kayaking, spending time with your pets, and how does it integrate into your professional life? Do you find that these personal interests contribute to your overall well-being and effectiveness as attorneys?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, I mean, everybody talks about work-life balance and those kind of topics, but I think it's just a matter of I'm a believer that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't serve others properly. So you occasionally have to step back, recharge your batteries, do what you need, provide yourself with some self-care, because if you're not 100%, you're not going to be 100% for your clients. So, Jennifer and I instituted, shutting down the office at noon on Fridays. It's been 15 years, maybe. It's been a long time since we started doing that. And I mean, we could have easily just said, okay, at noon, Jennifer and I are done, but we made the choice of, no, we're going to shut the office down because our office staff needs that same break that we need. And it has been one of the best things that we've ever done. And we've just kept that going. So yeah, we try to have a good time. I mean, at the end of the day, you hope you're working as hard as you are to have a certain quality of life, but if you don't take a minute or two to enjoy the kind of the fruits of the labor, why are we doing it, right? So yeah, we have a good time. We take kayaking trips. We really like to travel. I'm a golfer. I'm not saying I'm a good golfer, but I'm a golfer. And so I go out and chase a white ball around occasionally. Things of that nature. Jennifer, we are both in we enjoy Mardi Gras season down in Lower Alabama, which is a big thing down here. We've made, great friendships that way. And maybe a little to the previous question, we've gotten to know these people through, our getting out and doing and being part of the chamber and being part of the Mardi Gras cruise, because I think they get to know us. A lot of people have an idea of what a lawyer is, the suit and the tie and the stuffiness. I think it's just it benefits us for them to see us as people and for us to get to know them. It makes it easier for them to do business with us and send us their friends and family to do business with us. So, getting out and just having that downtime provides just a phenomenal amount of benefits.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, and I'm also a golfer, and I'm not saying if I'm a good golfer or a bad golfer, but I do enjoy it. And the one place that's on my bucket list that I haven't done yet is get down your way, because the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail
Absolutely.
is what I hear. It's the place to go. So
I've got a couple of courses I'm going to play this summer that's on the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. Come on down. We'll go out and play.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Well, hey, as we're winding up on our time, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Or are there any questions that maybe I didn't ask you that you thought, man, I wish you asked that question?
I would say that if one thing I would say is if you are in, because I'm a walking example of this, if you're in an area of the law that if you're burnt out and you don't want to do it anymore, I think we can get in our own way and think, well, I've talked to a lot of lawyers that who have this idea, well, I've just always done this for my entire career. That's great, but there was also a day and a time where you didn't know that area of the law like you do now. And if you learned one area of the law, you can learn another area of the law. Just bet on yourself, take the leap, make the change, and it'll work out. I think just get out of your own way and make the switch.
That's great advice.
I have one, completely different, but I think that's good advice too. I think and this is from a personal standpoint for myself and for Dusty. If you have someone, that's a special needs individual,
Yes.
adult or child, both, then please make some planning for those individuals. You should plan for yourself and your own estate, but you've got to plan for those individuals because they can't do it for themselves. And that's probably a whole nother podcast that John may have covered, for planning for special needs, but that I can't overstate it, because Dusty's brother's autistic. My aunt had special needs. We're kind of walking, breathing. We're in the middle of and have gone through that journey or are still going through that journey with our own family members.
Yeah, that's a great point. And no, we haven't had that yet. So I may be shoulder tapping you to come on back and talk about that. Special needs are very close, dear to my heart. I have an adult son who is autistic, high functioning on the spectrum, but yes, about the time he was 18 and I had to become guardian and those kind of things, immediately put together a special needs trust, supplemental needs trust for him, and make sure we've got the proper funding of that trust, because yeah, he's going to be around a lot longer than I am. So we want to make sure that he's taken care of. So Wonderful,
If I could
wonderful.
throw out one additional point or I guess, piece of advice that I would say to people. Just because you make your estate plan doesn't mean you're gonna die. I think there's a lot of people that avoid this because they think, well, once that's done, then I guess I'm gonna die. You know, you're not. You just, set things up. It may be a difficult situation for you now, but at the end of the day, your goal is to make it easier on your loved ones later.
Absolutely.
And so make your estate plan.
I love that you bring that up because I talk about this periodically. It's two responses I always get from people when I say, well, how come you haven't done it? The first one is, oh, I have time. And it's like, really? Because I don't have that crystal ball. I hope I make it home from the office tonight. I don't know if I will. The other one is, like to Dusty's point, well, it's bad luck, and so kind of my smart ass sense of humor says, look, we talk about sex all the time. It does not make us pregnant. Talking about death, planning for death, ain't gonna make us dead.
Right. That's great. I'm going to steal that analogy.
It's yours to take, my friend. It's yours to take. Well, guys, this has been so much fun. I can't thank you enough for joining me today, sharing with our audience, about you, your firm, your lives. I've really enjoyed our time together and so grateful for you. And a huge shout out to our audience for joining us. I'm going to put in the show notes all of Dusty and Jennifer's contact information, how you can reach them, how you can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, information to both of their offices. And please feel free to reach out to them with any questions. I assume you guys are good with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And John, thank you for having us. We both really enjoyed it. Thank you for having us, and thank you for what you do with the podcast.
Thank you. It's we just want to educate people, and the best way to do it is through awesome attorneys like yourselves. So thanks again to you. Thanks to our audience. And as always, my good friends, your life is your legacy. So plan ahead and make it a great day.